Well, I write ghost stories, and I'm going to read a couple of very short ones from places here in Madison County. So the first one I'm going to read, and these are really short, these are just a couple of pages, but the first one is from Whitehall. If you've been to Whitehall, it's outside of Richmond, kind of in Boonesboro. And this is a short story. This is from my book, Haunted Madison County. These are all stories I collected from local people. And so this is from a former tour guide. It was a rainy and gloomy day, and we hadn't had a lot of people come through on the tours. It was getting towards the end of the day, and I said I'd lock up. Everyone else had left, and I was alone in the house. We didn't get another tour, so I went up to the third floor to my dressing room and started getting out of my costume. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. They stopped on the second floor. I thought it might have been the maintenance worker or maybe another guide coming back inside, but then they called my name. It was a man's voice, but I didn't recognize it. "Lindsay," it hollered. "Lindsay, where are you?" I stopped and walked over to the landing and looked down. On the second floor, I could see the shadow of a tall man, but couldn't see a face. I called back and answered, "I'm up here," but the guy didn't move. I started getting a little freaked then, so I finished getting dressed. As I walked back towards the stairs, the voice came again. "Lindsay." This time, it sounded urgent. I flew down the stairs and looked, but nobody was there. Nobody was in the house at all. Here's another one. So Waco has several different haunted stories in it, and one of the most famous ones is actually based on a true story. This is called the Cane Patch Murder. Close to the Bluegrass Army Depot, there was a farm several decades ago that no longer exists. It has since been bought up by the depot, and it's part of their land. A man and woman lived on the farm, but they were apparently unhappy. One night, for reasons nobody will ever understand, the man killed his wife by chopping off her head. He then chopped off the rest of her limbs and buried her body in various places on the farm, but he did not bury her head with the rest of the body parts. Now, supposedly, you can find her walking along US 52 and the back roads behind the depot looking for her head. So, truth or fiction? Unfortunately, part of this tale is true. There truly was a murder in this area that resulted in the husband killing his wife in such a morbid manner. The story has grown into an urban legend over time, however, and few people probably realize that there is truth to it. The real story is, at dusk on Friday, September 18th, 1936, a tenant farmer named Stanley Isaacs, or Harry Brotherton, depending on the source, was walking home after a long day's work at cutting corn in Madison County. Possibly, Isaacs was whistling a tune, as men tended to do after working hard and having a long day, and imagining that all was right with the world. As he sauntered by a sugarcane patch located on Percy Maupin's farm near Stagner Lane, 6 miles from Richmond, Isaacs received his first hint that something was awry. Something didn't sit well with him when he glanced at a pair of black women's shoes for the third time. He'd seen them lying in the ditch since Wednesday. Today, however, a horrible stench permeated the air near the shoes and made him gag. A pair of dogs ran out of the nearby cane patch and tried to attack him. Isaacs decided to investigate further. What he found left him shocked. There, with hardly any flesh covering the bones on her face, was a woman's head. Her hair was gone, and there was nothing distinguishable about her. Authorities were called in. When the rest of the body was discovered, they found the body's left arm and right hand were chopped away. It took quite some time to locate them. Parky Denny was accused of murdering his wife and cutting her body into pieces. He was eventually executed for his crime. And a rather bizarre end to this tale, before they figured out who she was, her head was left in a bucket of fluid on the back porch of the funeral home for several weeks. Now, my son goes to Waco Elementary, and one of the teachers there told me this story. Dana told me that her husband, a local police officer, was driving home one night when he saw a woman up ahead of him in the headlights. She She was walking very slowly, like she was injured, and she wore a long black coat. From a distance, she appeared normal looking, although she was swaying from side to side a little, and he thought she might be inebriated. As his cruiser closed in on her, he saw something he will never forget. From the shoulders down, the woman looked completely normal from the back, but she was missing her head. He went up the road about 20 feet and turned around, hoping to see her from the front. He thought and hoped it was a trick of the light or that she was wearing a costume. When he started back down the road towards where she'd been, however, she was gone. So that's an older urban legend in Madison County, and a lot of the younger generation doesn't seem to know much about it, which is kind of interesting as far as urban legends go. Sometimes they go around, stick around for a while, and then people forget about them. Then I'm just going to read a few minutes from a book that I've written. This is fiction. It's called A Broom with a View. Now that we've heard about headless, limbless women, I'll try to read something a little more lighthearted. This is A Broom with a View about Liza Jane Higginbottom, Kudzu Valley's resident witch. So, when Liza Jane had last been in Kudzu Valley, it had boasted a Taco Bell, Burger King, and McDonald's. There was talk back in the day of putting in a Walmart on the new bypass. That Walmart never materialized. The bypass was a lonesome stretch of road that passed through what used to be farmland and a drive-in. 5 families had lost the land to it all in the name of progress. It did, however, get travelers to the next county over 3 minutes faster. This was important since Morrell County was dry, making it impossible to legally buy any kind of alcohol. Liza's grandfather, Payne, had died 10 years earlier. Her grandmother, Nana Budd, passed away 2 years ago. The old farmhouse had been empty since. Liza Jane had gone down and taken a look at things back in the summer before her big move, so she knew what she was getting herself into. Still, there weren't many conveniences. For one thing, it was completely devoid of food, unless you wanted to count the bag of birdseed that someone had left out on the back porch in the 1980s, and the small piece of moldy cheese that had led a mouse to his last fatal adventure. Liza Jane needed supplies. Other than the tiny food marts attached to the gas stations, there was only one grocery store in the whole county. It was a discount chain that sold fatty beef, bait, generic canned food, and bulk bags of cheap cereal. She could roll with that. At least it was cheap, and right now, she needed cheap. As Liza slowly pushed her cart down the unfamiliar aisles and loaded up with boxes of Rice Crisps and frosty tiny wheats, she became acutely aware of someone's eyes drilling holes into her. Liza Jane Merriweather. The loud, reedy shrill came from less than 10 feet behind her. When she turned, Liza was face to face with a tiny woman carrying a yellow shopping basket overflowing with at least 24 packages of frozen spinach. Unlike many of the other shoppers who looked like they'd stumbled out of bed without getting dressed, the little woman before her wore a blue tailored suit and was in full makeup. Her lavender eyeshadow framed small beady eyes behind thick bifocals, and her clunky heels sounded like shotgun blasts as she marched over to where Liza Jane patiently waited. Her hair, permed and sprayed within an inch of its life, was a brilliant purple. Liza closed her eyes for a moment and reached forward, focusing on the woman's mind. She frantically attempted to extract a name or memory, but all she could come up with was pebbles. "Just look at you," the woman crooned. The combination of Marlboro Lights, Aquanet, and Elizabeth Taylor's White Diamonds was overpowering. "You're so grown up." Liza plastered what she hoped was a respectful smile upon her face and gently untangled herself. She was afraid to squeeze back too hard. In spite of the woman's grip, her shoulders and arms felt brittle. God forbid she break somebody on her first day out in town. "Yes, I've grown up a little. I'm 32. Liza Jane Merriweather." Her hair did not move an inch when she shook her head in disbelief. "I just can't believe it." "Well, it's Higginbottom now," Liza said helpfully. "I got married." "Oh? Is he here with you?" She began looking around as though Liza might have hidden him under a gallon of milk in her shopping cart. He's back in Boston. We're getting things together." There was no need to go into the messy details of her impending divorce right there in the grocery store aisle. People were already stopping, pretending to be keenly interested in the nutritional values on the backs of discount cereal boxes while they listened to the women chat. "Oh, well, that's okay. I bet you don't remember my name." "Do you remember my name?" she demanded. Liza, taken off guard, found herself flustered. "Well, I think so," she murmured. "Oh, give me a break, lady. It's been 30 years, she thought to herself. "It's Penny Libbles. I was your granny's best friend. May she rest in peace. Oh, Pebbles, Liza Jane nodded. That makes more sense. You never could say my name right. Penny stared at her wide-eyed, and Liza wondered if she was waiting for her to try to say it now. Liza had never been good at small talk, or grocery stores. I hear you're opening one of those new agey herbal shops here, Penny pressed. You aren't going to be selling those drugs, are you? That meth? At least 3 more people stopped what they were doing and turned to look back at them. Liza randomly grabbed at a can of pineapples behind her and clutched it. She was about to dig a hole into her hands from the ringing. No, she sputtered, nothing illegal. It's a holistic clinic. A day spa, really, with herbal remedies and massages and not one of those places with hookers. Penny lowered her voice to a whisper. Oh, no, just teas and lotions, regular old massages, Liza promised. Oh, dear Lord, make me disappear, she whispered. Liza thought she might pass out. One woman passing by actually grabbed her young son by the arm and pushed him on ahead, as though Liza was already a lady of the night, hawking her body and illegal drugs in the fruit and cereal aisle. Penny pursed her lips again so tightly they were almost white. Well, you might do okay here. We're not Hollywood, though. I don't know how many people need those new agey things. We got her voice dropped down back to a stage whisper, a chiropractor last year. Liza nodded her head, pretending to understand the implication. He's just now starting to catch on, Penny continued. The ladies here are good Christian women, and they don't like being touched in certain places by men who aren't their husbands. But you're a woman, you'll probably be fine. Penny did not look hopeful. It was all Liza Jane could do to keep a straight face. The can of pineapples began to shake in her unsteady hands as she forced her body to control itself. She mentally gathered her thoughts together and forced her breathing to slow down and ease up. Then she ran a quick but effective little charm through her mind that sent a wave of coolness through her body, relaxing her. It wasn't much, but it'd hold until she reached the checkout counter. Well, I certainly hope people will give me a chance, Liza replied. Well, at least you don't have to work since your husband has a good job, Penny crooned, patting Liza on the arm. Well, I'd better skedaddle now. I'm making a pot roast for dinner. Have you found a church yet? That kind of came out of nowhere. Never mind. You are coming to mine, Elk Creek Primitive. Now, we don't allow none of that singing or music nonsense that the Baptists and Methodists seem to carry on about. But you'll love our services. They run all morning, and our preacher really gets the spirit inside him. I'll see you at 10. Before Liza could answer, Penny was scurrying off through the considerable number of onlookers, her purple hair a helmet, raging her into battle towards the produce. Since it was a dry county and beer was unavailable, Liza turned and headed back to the candy aisle. She was going to need a lot more chocolate than she'd initially planned for.